stand by for action.
Thanks for joining me. My name's Dave Miller, and welcome to the second part of a special Veterans Day, Remembrance Day edition of The Unpleasant Blind Guy. Since the guns fell silent in 1918, there have been generations of veterans and active serving that have lived and died in the United States of America and in the West. And in the second half of the English Defense League radio show that Jan, Rennie, and myself recorded, we moved to the modern day and discussed conditions under which our veterans in Allied countries are living and what we need to do going forward. And remember, source documents for this program can be found at UBG Contact on Twitter, and I'm also available at Dave Milner on Facebook, the Tea Party Community in MeWe, and Amagador on Gab. Now to the program. Now, people, we're going to shift to the modern day, and what kind of help our veterans are getting now. What kind of honor they're getting now as our nation's leaders are going to ceremonies to mark the 100th anniversary of the armistice. What is being done for our veterans at this point? And Jan, you have an article from The Guardian.
Yes, it's Commonwealth veterans living in poverty set for a £12 million UK aid boost. This is for the Commonwealth, I believe, and not for anyone living in the UK. Aid funding of £12 million will be used to help thousands of impoverished war veterans who served with the British Army across the Commonwealth.
Oh, well...
Penny Mordaunt has announced. The Minister for International Development said the cash would be used to provide 2 meals a day and regular cash transfers to 7,000 veterans and war widows who served in the British Armed Forces. The programme will run in more than 30 countries. 7 million's not going to go far in 30 countries, is it?
No, it's not.
Including India, Kenya and Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, as you can break this down afterwards, but I'm just shocked at this Zimbabwe, which was formerly Rhodesia, was it not?
Right. Yes.
I never knew that they were part of the Commonwealth. That's new to me. Anyway, where some veterans and war widows are struggling to afford the equivalent of 1 meal a day. The announcement by the Department for International Development follows concern over the plight of hundreds of Commonwealth veterans, some of whom are in their 90s, living in poverty in Zimbabwe. We owe a tremendous amount to these Commonwealth veterans. The British public would be shocked to know that those who had served alongside our armed forces would be living in such poverty, Mordaunt said. It is absolutely right to make this commitment. I think the British public would approve of us pledging this support because of the sacrifices the Commonwealth veterans have made and because of the debt of gratitude we owe to them. The announcement comes ahead of Armistice Day, commemorations on Sunday. About 4,500 veterans and 2,500 widows will receive cash transfers through the Royal Commonwealth Ex-Service League, RCEL. The League's Deputy Grand President, Lord Richards of Herstmonceux, a former Chief of Defence Staff, said, "We owe a great deal of debt to the servicemen and women of the Commonwealth who served in the British Armed Forces in the Second World War and afterwards prior to their country's independence. This grant will help the RCEL ensure that these brave men and women are sustained and cared for in their twilight years. As important, it will let them know that they have not been forgotten and that their service and sacrifice is remembered. Among those who will benefit from the initiative are Boto Morong, 99, from Gambia, who served in the Royal Army Medical Corps in Burma between 42 and 47, and Sepoy Penhongo Igong from Nagaland, India, who fought in Kohima and Burma during the Second World War. However, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, which sets the rules for global aid spending, cautioned against upsetting community dynamics following DFID's announcement. The OECD said it would not decide on whether the cash is eligible to count as overseas development assistance until next year, when the UK reports its 2018 flows. Here we go. Yasmin Ahmad, head of aid statistics at the organisation, said, Certainly given that these funds will be provided to people living in poverty in Commonwealth developing countries, they could fall within the ODA definition. But she questioned why the support was for veterans of UK armed forces and not all veterans living below the poverty line, and said the contributions would need to be made in a sensitive way, for instance, if certain war veterans were offered support and their neighbours were not. I think Miss Yasmin Ahmad wants us to pay everybody in the country, whether they served or not, reading that. An estimated 4.5 million Commonwealth soldiers from the Indian subcontinent, Africa and the Caribbean fought in the British Army during the Second World War. Of the 14,000 veterans who survive, half are now living in poverty.
So that shows, Jan, what the UK is doing for Commonwealth soldiers. But as you said, this isn't about soldiers from the UK. This isn't about veterans from the UK. And when you talk about this, it's not just veterans of World War I anymore, obviously. This goes right down the line to veterans from the Falklands War, right down to Afghanistan. And at this point, for those who have been following Tommy Robinson, who is an author and a journalist, and who started the English Defence League and is a civil rights leader, you know that he has been hard at work championing the UK's military. And I'm going to play for you now an audio from Mr. Robinson, which he recorded on the 8th of this month.
On our way to Newport to meet a fella called Gus, who's an ex-serviceman, who's on hunger strike. He's 9 days in. He's sleeping outside of combat stress. I believe he's an ex-veteran, 62 years old, who's suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder, and he's making a complaint or having a protest about his treatment, about how our ex-veterans are being treated. He's 9 days in. He could die from doing this. So we're going to catch up and find out what it's all about. So I've only got snippets of actually what's happened and why you're protesting. Mind filling me in?
Yeah, well, today I said this is an open chair. Anybody who wants to come is welcome to come. So thank you for coming. I mean, believe it or not, you've beaten most of the politicians I invited to come.
What is this? Is it like a medical centre for combat stress?
It's specialist for post-traumatic stress disorder. They got treatment here. Well, at some point they ran out of funding, kicked everybody out, and it's empty.
You've got post-traumatic stress disorder. So you've been coming here regularly.
Yeah.
It helps you. Did it help you?
Oh yeah. It kept me on a level keel, you know.
And then just like that, gone.
No
direction of where to go for the same treatment.
Clear off.
Just gone.
That's it. No discharge report, no follow-up care, nothing. Just gone. Now what's happened? This has happened to hundreds of guys. Now they've been turning up here since I've sat here to tell their stories. Guys have been in there, have left, and committed suicide, and it's directly attributable to the fact that they were discharged here without any medical backup, without any medical intervention or support or anything. I've been to funerals of guys who've committed suicide who I served down south with. It's heartbreaking. I've been trying to kind of get some answers from this organisation for 3 years through my MPs, you name it. Nothing. So
for 3 years, you've been trying to find out why nothing's happening, and now you're sitting here.
It was the last resort. It's his last resort. Yeah.
Where did you serve?
Falklands.
Paratrooper.
Paratrooper, yeah. Paratrooper engineer. So engineer support for the parachute regiment, and 3 tours of Northern Ireland. So I did my bit, you know, and this is what it's come down to.
You're on hunger strike.
I haven't eaten a thing for 10 days, and I'm pretty bollocks.
After 7 days, your internal organs start becoming damaged.
Yes,
irreversibly.
Let's put it this way. I'm coming to the winter of my life, you know. We stand on the precipice of an avalanche of Falklands, Iraqi and Afghanistan vets are going to come forward in the next 10 years. And unless it changes. I would like to think, I mean, I'm prepared to sacrifice my life if it comes to that. Don't want to, and I'll make it through till Sunday. But if you think this through, right, I would like to leave this life thinking that the next generation of veteran is not going to have the 30 years that I've had over this condition. So My life will have been worthwhile if I can save those guys and come in and proper structures in place. Lots of political bluster where they said, oh, we're putting this in place and that in place. But this is the 100th anniversary of the First World War, where shell shock was first noticed, first come to the light, and I'm sitting outside of an empty building that could be looking after these blokes, and there's blokes on the streets. So it says it all. If the government says to me we ain't got the facilities, oh yes we have, because it's there. I'm looking at it now, that's why I'm here.
If you want to show support, go to www.savecombatstress.com. This would first off be about getting this charity the funding they need. Getting them the funding they need. And also, you've said an independent inquiry into how, say that out loud, men are coming here suffering with mental problems from war. And then all of a sudden, overnight, they just close it down. They get a letter saying you're discharged. Even though they're still mentally unwell, you're discharged. There's a building here that can house 100 people or help 100 people. So that's the ask, what you'll be asking for.
Yeah.
And
and that doesn't seem unreasonable. That seems a reasonable thing to me.
Aftercare, mental aftercare for people who sacrifice their lives, who are willing to die, who are suffering in their homes, in their families, in the streets. Your relationships, their whole lives are suffering from mental problems caused from war. War that they were sent to by our government, and then they're left.
So, Jen, you've heard this audio from Tommy Robinson. Your impressions?
I think that in light of this audio and what Tommy Robinson has been doing, it is like someone finally who's in the public eye has spoken out about it. I know that soldiers have spoken about it for years in the past and in the present, but they've never had anyone to bring it to the fore. With Tommy Robinson doing that, will it make any difference? I doubt it very much. I've just read the article where we're looking after the Commonwealth, and although it's not a great deal of money, they don't mention Canada, New Zealand,
Australia,
and any other Commonwealth country. It just seems to be Zimbabwe, other parts of Africa, and parts of India. I'm not sure that... Are they not being... I don't know, are they being judgmental? Do they think that everybody in Canada and Australia are doing fine and it's great, so we don't recognise them? The British Commonwealth is quite large, so why would you single out 3 main countries? And they seem to be leaning more towards Zimbabwe. I'm just perplexed as to... Like, Tommy Robinson is trying... When you hear about British soldiers being fired for having a photograph taken with Tommy Robinson, for those of you that in other parts that's not in the UK and haven't heard about it, Tommy Robinson pulled up at a petrol station, a gas station, and a bunch of soldiers on a truck saw him, and obviously they all spoke, and the next thing they're all being charged. One got booted out of the army for being with Tommy, and they're being ostracised, picked on. It's unbelievable what's going on. We don't have freedom of speech. Now we can't even have our photographs taken or talk to someone who's in the public eye. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Well, and he also speaks, Jan, of the fact that current British serving have to buy their own food. Their food isn't even provided for them by the government. And no. I have to think, Jan, that some of this has to have to do with the fact that migrants are being given everything when they come over.
Yes.
And I'm just going to say it, Islamic migrants.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
And at the same time, in the UK, and this is also true in the United States, Americans, don't think that I've forgotten about our veterans, because I haven't. We've got veterans that are living on the street because they can't find a place to live. Now, in the UK, that's because the public housing there favors migrants instead of the veterans. So these men and women are living rough out on the street, and nobody's taking care of them. What I find interesting, Jan, and this shows you the reach that Tommy Robinson has, is that the media finally got hold of this. Now, I don't know if this audio comes from Sky News or the BBC or who it comes from, but they finally decided that they were going to go around after Tommy Robinson had finished his live feed and have a talk with Gus Hales.
Yeah, Jane. Mr. Hales has been here for 11 days now outside this combat stress treatment centre in Newport, Shropshire. This is your 11th day of fasting, isn't it,
Yeah.
Gus? How are you feeling?
Pretty washed out, pretty tired, still lucid, still determined to go to Remembrance Day, but I feel myself getting weaker each day.
And you've been sleeping in that tent behind us. How's that been?
A former paratrooper, went through the Falklands War. Quite enjoy it in a strange sort of way.
And why did you feel you had to take these extreme measures?
Lots of reasons really, but we can see that treatment of veterans returning from combat is woefully inadequate. I think somebody said there was a suicide last night, which brings the yearly total to about 57, I believe. There was 14 in October, and I think it's 4 this month, November already, so the treatment just doesn't seem to be there. It doesn't seem to be together or packaged, and that's got to change. It's the 100th anniversary of the First World War since shell shock was first recognised. Today they call it combat-related PTSD, and things need to change.
What do you want to see change?
Maybe dedicated centres paid for by the government, because it was the government I was employed by, it was the government that sent me to war, and we seem to be farmed off to this charity that it costs billions, and the war doesn't just stop on the day of the ceasefire. When the guns go silent, it's a continuing war for a veteran. The sights and sounds and smells he's experienced will stay with him for the rest of his life.
And what symptoms are you experiencing? Of course, you've had an unreserved apology from combat stress for being discharged in 2015. What have been your struggles since then?
Really, after the discharge, I wrote to this organisation to ask why I was discharged. That still hasn't been answered. There's been an apology, but I still don't know why I was discharged. And according to the NICE guidelines, this should be a proper care discharge package, which I'm still waiting for. So I don't know where I am regarding this organisation who treated me for so long. I would like a discharge plan so I can take it perhaps to another organisation and say this is what they did for me, this is where I am. But although there's been an unconditional apology, I still have not got that.
So, Jan, what do you think of this panther-like response from the media, just jumping all over this story after Tommy Robinson had spoken of it in one of his live feeds?
Well, it's just typical of the media, isn't it? And it's just all liberalism. We're surrounded by liberal media that will not publish the truth. They go against everything that we know is right. They go against any principle. It's like a breakdown of, let's condemn the soldier. Look at the response we've had in the UK alone. I've known people walk in. A gentleman 2 days ago went into a grocery store and he had a Help for Heroes shirt on, and the girl behind the counter refused to serve him because he was racist.
Right.
They are now turning the poppy, which we celebrate on the 11th, I say commemorate, not celebrate, commemorate, about the First World War primarily, but it also covers any soldiers or service people that's died in wars since 1918. They are now turning it into racism. It's not being talked about in this. Our children do not know the first meaning of the First World War. I must admit, there's one channel on one of our televisions that's been commemorating all week, doing a great job about the poppies and our service people. But now they're turning it around. There is even a movement within universities and within so-called, what are they called? They call themselves celebrities and MPs. They want it stopped because we are glorifying war. Now, we're glorifying war. This is what they're saying. And yet we are protecting people that want war. It's like Churchill said after the First World War, The West is to blame for watching and allowing the war to develop into what it did. We're doing that today with the Islamists, with the invasion of Islam, the protection of Islam, our free speech being removed because, right, we'll call it free speech. We keep going on about free speech. It's turning into blasphemy laws.
Mm-hmm.
If we say something about Islam, we are blasphemous towards Allah. This is where it's turning. This is how it's going to develop in the next few months. Wait and see. Back to our soldiers. They will never give our soldiers any help. They will never do a thing for our soldiers because I'm damn sure part of our governments hate the soldiers, hate what represents anything military. I mean, you've got the leader of the Labour Party who goes to dinner with IRA terrorists, who supports Hamas. And I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get into power at the next election. And when he does, we're in big trouble, folks. Our soldiers lying in the streets, they're not getting any treatment for PTSD. You know, this war in Afghanistan, Iraq, it's been ongoing all these years, and they're back and forth, back and forth. God knows what they see. God knows what they witness. You know, I've witnessed myself how soldiers react when they come home on leave, and they're not actually sleeping. They're always on guard. They don't rest. There is no mental rest, even when they're home. And we're doing nothing. It's time we put our forces first and the immigrants last.
And I agree with that, Jan, and I just want to echo that for the United States of America. Yes. there's no reason, people, why our serving military should have to get food stamps because their pay is so low. And there is absolutely no reason that our veterans should be underserved. But, as Jan says, there is an attitude among the political class in both our nations and in much of the rest of the West that is being infused into academia. They're both feeding on each other. And Jan is going to read an article that typifies this attitude.
Cambridge University, what is it about these universities and schools? They're being taught liberalism. Okay. Cambridge University Student Union, CUSU, has voted down a motion to promote Remembrance Sunday amid fears about the glorification of conflict. The motion called on the university, its colleges and faculties to be more proactive in promoting the cause of remembrance. This could include asking for a minute's silence on Remembrance Sunday or sending email reminders to students about the availability of poppies, the motion said. It encouraged the commemoration of British veterans, adding that CUSU should ensure that Remembrance Day becomes a well-established and well-marked event across the university. But the motion, which was put forward by two members of the university's Conservative Association, was rejected. How dare they use the word conservative? Was rejected by students during their first meeting of the new academic year. James Palmer, Mayor of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, said, "The motion brings great shame to Cambridge and shows disdain for the armed forces." He told the Daily Telegraph, "It is something I find very difficult to comprehend, that students can't be grateful and respectful of previous generations and their sacrifices. It is easy to judge from a distance when you have the luxury of a safe and comfortable democracy. We have an enormous debt to armed forces in this country." Cambridge University's Conservative Association said it was shocking that the motion was not passed, as they accused students of seeking to erase the memory of veterans. Timur Koskan, the association's chair, said that while Remembrance Sunday events are held across the university, many students, unfortunately, do not wear poppies. He added, "We want the Students' Union to promote the poppy appeal and raise money for struggling veterans' charities." The amendment, which CUSU Council overwhelmingly voted to accept, had the clear intention of de-emphasising the sacrifices made by our brave armed forces, something which Remembrance Day in particular seeks to promote. A spokesman for Cambridge Students' Union said discussions were not about erasing the past, but rather broadening the focus on our remembrance to include those who suffered and died wherever they were in the world. I presume that's soldiers. We are a global university with students drawn from more than 120 countries, many of whom choose to recognise remembrance in different ways. The spokesman added that presidents of both the undergraduate and postgraduate student unions will lay wreaths at Remembrance Sunday event. And this is the way we're heading, people. They're already calling for the ban of poppies, the ban of Remembrance Day, and want to turn it into, let's remember that, we caused the conflicts. We're promoting war. How are we promoting war when we're remembering the sacrifices of all these millions of people over the years, not just the First World War, Crimea, Boer War, you're talking the senseless lives lost everywhere. Vietnam War. Yes. There's one war that I hate is the Vietnam War.
Like so many other wars, Jan, it wasn't really fought as a war. The determination to defeat communism on the Vietnam Peninsula wasn't there. It wasn't there. And that is the real shame. It wasn't in the quality of the fighting men and people who went over there. That wasn't it. And it wasn't in the quality of the South Vietnamese army. That wasn't it either. It was in a movement since the Korean War, which said that we can't fight wars full bore, straight on, like we did World War I. That we can't mark an enemy and deal with them until they can't fight anymore, and then we can declare victory and the people that they might have repressed can be free. It's no longer about that, and it hasn't been about that for 70 years, 70 plus years. So this is, Jan, where we are. And for my part, I want to say to my American brothers and sisters, if you see a veteran, if you know of a veteran or anybody currently serving, just go up to them and say thank you. I'm hearing this from veterans, Jan, over here. Don't just go up and formulaically say thank you for your service, okay? Tell them that you thank them and that you appreciate what they did and what they're doing. And buy them a cup of coffee or something if that's in your means, or maybe buy them lunch or something like that. But remember that they put themselves in harm's way for you. And Jan, I know you've got sentiments you want to express that way as well.
Yes, of course, to any service person. They are mostly men that's on the streets, unfortunately. And in the UK, they are now, the cops have nothing better to do but to go around and start removing their sleeping bags or moving them on in this cold weather, In the odd cities, they have trucks that give away soup, but that normally happens, Christmas, New Year, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Our soldiers that's homeless, and indeed even the ones that come back from war, they're struggling. They're not the best paid people on the planet anyway. They have to pay for their own food. In many cases, they've had to buy their own equipment. This is the state of this country that I believe it was Tony Blair that started demoralising and removing certain, I'm not going to say the word benefits in the British Army, because they never were, they're risking their lives for just a pay. They were very, very poorly paid until Margaret Thatcher got in power. She was the first one to give them a pay rise. I don't think they get much since. It's like, I don't know, Theresa May, does she care about our soldiers? Oh, she'll pretend to on Sunday.
Certainly.
And what happens is you see Tony Blair with his poppy on, who literally got thousands of soldiers killed. And then you see the leader of the Labour Party, that skank Corbyn. He said he'll be there, but he might not wear a poppy. Well, we don't want him there. We don't want him there. We have got, and when our soldiers like Tommy Robinson are talking to them, it just shows how low their morale is. Not only is any benefits like paying for their own food, buying their own equipment and everything else, they're being demoralised all the time mentally. About 5-6 years ago, they were recruiting from the West Indies. And I was down in a military base, and I said, where are all these West Indians coming from? They'd been recruited for half the pay of a British soldier. But they were so poor back there, I don't know, St. Lucia, Trinidad, wherever, they were just grateful to get that money. And the first thing I thought of was cannon fodder. How dare they recruit in a poor country? Yeah, it's part of the Commonwealth. It used to be whatever. I don't know which islands are which now. But to recruit on half the pay, and then they're still paying for their own meals. But they felt they were rich because they had more money than they would have done back home. It's not right. It's just not right.
No, it isn't. And I would just like to say that as patriots in both of our countries, we have to keep the focus on our leaders as much as possible. If it requires that we shame them and put the plight of these people in their face, then we need to do that. If it requires that we let more people know about the conditions that they're living under, we should do that. Part of the reason that we did want to do this show wasn't just to mark the 100th anniversary of the armistice. We wanted to do it. Jan felt strongly about this, and so did I, for our veterans and current serving military now. We need to take care of them now. And we need to do things like President Trump did. And for the people who are listening to all of this mess that the left is putting about him being a racist and a white nationalist and an anti-Semite and all this garbage, just remember that he was the one who cared enough to sign the VA reform bill. This comes from an article published on June the 23rd, 2017 by CNN. President Donald Trump made good on a campaign promise Friday, signing into the law legislation that gives leadership at the Department of Veterans Affairs power to fire failed employees and protect those who uncover wrongdoing at the agency. For many years, the government failed to keep its own promises to our veterans. We all remember the nightmare that veterans suffered during the VA scandals that were exposed a few years ago, Trump said during remarks in the East Room at the White House. Veterans were put on secret wait lists, given the wrong medication, given bad treatments, and ignored in moments of crisis for them, he said. Many veterans died waiting for a simple doctor's appointment. What happened was a national disgrace, and yet some of the employees involved in these scandals remained on the payrolls. Outdated laws kept the government from holding those who failed our veterans accountable. Today, Trump said, we are finally changing those laws. The law, which won bipartisan support in both the Senate and House. See what happens, folks, when you have a Congress that actually cooperates with the president? Comes after years of stories about chaos inside the VA. That's, for our British brothers and sisters, that's our Veterans Administration. They handle things like medical care for our veterans, including CNN investigations in 2013 and 2014 that found dozens of veterans died or were seriously injured because of long wait times at hospitals across the country. And that, Jan, is the sort of thing that our leaders need to do in the West. In the UK, they need to keep doing them in the United States. We have a new Congress here in the United States that's going to take power in January. And they are going to try and do, I'm sure, what they're doing over in the UK as far as denying our veterans and our current serving military what they need. And we have to make sure that even though the Democrats now have a majority in the House, that they do not do these sorts of things to our veterans. If it means shutting down the country until the 2020 election, then I say so be it. Because our veterans and our serving military are that important. If a few fat cat computer keyboard punchers don't come to work for a few months or even for a few years, and our veterans get the benefits they need, then frankly, I'm
So
good
be
with
it.
it. Yeah, I'm frankly good with it. And Jan, I'm really hoping in the UK that, as dark as it looks now, that your people can get together through people like Tommy Robinson, through his information, and get good things done for your veterans, because it is vital. These people really just sacrificed. I've often said, Jan, for me, possibly the worst thing about serving in the military would have to have been, and by the way, I would have served if I had had the vision to do it. Would have been to have to say yes sir and no sir to jerks, because that's what you have to do. You, I'm sure, Jan, have heard plenty of stories about this. Just people who are to use maybe a Britishism, right bastards, and yet you have to salute them and say yes sir and no sir, and just that alone, and not being able to say, hey, guess what, boss, bite me, and walk away, which I know because I've done that, is a huge sacrifice. And that's before the substandard medical care. That's before, in the UK, having to buy your own food, and in the United States, having to use food stamps. That's before getting shot at. Jan, before I turn it over to you for final remarks, I just want to say to the listeners that as we mark the 100th anniversary of Armistice, we remember that there are those who are still serving and those who have served that require and are due our highest respect. I thank God for them. And Jeff, get well fast, and Jeff will be back with us as soon as he possibly can on the English Defence League radio show.
I'm sure he will, and I'm sure he will have his own commemoration, because Jeff is a great patriot. He loves his military. He loves his country. He loves America, as I do.
We love him right back, Jan.
Thank God for Mr. Trump. You don't know how envious the patriots of the UK are that we don't have Mr. Trump. His mother was Scottish. He could come here. He can live
No, you don't get him.
He's part British. So, yes, I echo what you've said, Dave. God bless our soldiers. God bless our service people. Whichever force they're in, where would we be without them? Quite weak. Maybe that's what they want. The Liberals want the countries to be weak for whatever reason. They claim to love their country, and yet they're doing everything to sabotage our cultures, our history, our people. It's our military that keeps us strong, keeps us resilient to outside pressures. It's a sad time, because the dying of servicemen and women will continue. As we speak now, I'm sure someone's lost their life in some Far Eastern rat hole that they keep sending them to. God bless you all, and keep the faith. I'm not sure when this song was written. It is about the First World War. It's called The Green Fields of France, colloquially known as William McBride. And when you hear it, you'll understand every word of it. I think there's about 7 verses. It's a shame to miss one out, actually, because they're all quite prophetic, if you like. Yeah, The Green Fields of France. It's all about World War One, Great War, as they call it. It's been a pleasure doing the show with you, Dave, and thank you to all our listeners, and keep the faith, and God bless you all. God bless the US, God bless the UK. And I'd like to say good night to you all, and we'll see you soon on the next EDL radio show, and I'm sure Jeff will be back. Good night, God bless you all.
Well, how do you do, young Willie McBride? Do you mind if I sit here down by your graveside and rest for a while 'neath the warm summer sun. I've been walking all day and I'm nearly done. I see by your gravestone you are only 19 when you joined the Great Fallen in 1916. I hope you died well and I hope you died clean. Our young Willie McBride, was it slow and obscene? Did he beat the drums slowly? Did he play the fife slowly? Did they sound the death march as they lowered you down? And did the band play the last post and chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? Did you leave a wife or a sweetheart behind? In some faithful heart is your memory enshrined. Although you died back in 1916, in that faithful heart are you forever 19? Or are you a stranger without even a name, enclosed and forever behind the glass frame? In an old photograph, torn, battered and stained, and faded to yellow in the brown leather frame. Did he beat the drum slowly? Did he play the fife slowly? Did they sound the death march as they lowered you down? Did the band play the last post and chorus? And did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? The sun, now it shines on the green fields of France. There's a warm summer breeze, it makes the red poppies dance. And look how the sun shines from under the clouds. There's no gas, no barbed wire, there's no gunfiring now. But here in this graveyard, it's still no man's land. The countless white crosses stand mute in the sand. To man's blind indifference to his fellow man, to a whole generation that were butchered and damned. Did he beat the drum slowly? Did he play the fife slowly? Did they sound the death march as they lowered you down? And did the band play the last post and chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? Ah, young Willie McBride, I can't help wonder why do those that lie here know why did they die? And did they believe when they answered the call? Did they really believe that this war would end wars? Well, the sorrow, the suffering, the glory, the pain, the killing and dying were all done in vain. For young Willie McBride, it all happened again, and again and again and again and again. Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they play the fife slowly? Did they sound the death march as they lowered you down? Did the band play the last post and chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? Did they beat The drums slowly they play, the fife slowly they sound. The death march as it lowered you down. Did the band play the last post in chorus? And did the pipes play the flowers of the fall?
I want to thank Jan Rennie of the Christian Defense League for joining me in that special English Defense League radio show, and we both join our friends in wishing host Jeff Mitchell a speedy recovery and return to the helm of that program. As we finish off the Thanksgiving weekend here in the United States of America, and as we move into the Christmas season, let us remember, honor, and help those who have sacrificed so that we may pursue a normal life here at home. Let us find ways to give them the normal life that they are due. And that is it for this time. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for listening, and may your God go with you. Goodbye. The Unpleasant Blind Guy is copyright 2018. Anno Domini. Now for Dave's Canes. Extras that help you navigate the new media world.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
I'm Dave Milner. I bring 50 years of news analysis experience to you weekly through SHR Media, High Plains Pundit Talk Radio, and the Western Free Radio Network on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's English Defense League Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant, like the truth that Arizona Senator John McCain is still dead, and yes, as a senator, he did suck.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.